Koizumi nodded. Yes, reality is unlike the world of fiction. There is a minimal chance of anything an interesting sealed room murder occurring in our school. In that case, we should go to a place with a higher likelihood of something occurring. At least, that must be what Suzumiya is thinking. I was reminded of the phrase, the tail wagging the dog. That would be the location of this trip, the remote island. I do not know the reason, but such a place is generally accepted by society as an appropriate stage for a murder. What society are you talking about? That's one narrow-minded society. Putting it another way, you could say that the strange happenings occur wherever a great detective goes. Humans labeled as great detectives possess the supernatural ability to attract trouble instead of merely happening upon it. That is the only explanation I can think of. Cases do not leave the appearance of detectives. Rather, the presence of a detective leads to the birth of a case. I gave Koizumi a look as though I had just accidentally stepped on a sea slug. Are you sane? I believe that my actions can always be considered within the realm of sanity. Everything I've said concerning detectives, closed circles, and the like has not been a result of my own deliberation. Rather, I was merely tracing Suzumiya's pattern of thinking. In other words, the simple way to put it would be that she wants to be a detective. That is the purpose of this trip. How is she going to become a great detective? I suppose she could fake a whole case by playing both the culprit and the detective. Nevertheless, I believe this to be a better alternative than hurting for a Tsuchinoko. All I did was mention to Suzumiya that an acquaintance had built a villa on an island and was looking for guests. I personally do not expect any murders to occur, obviously. Koizumi's cheerful smile pisses me off every time I see it, and the way he shrugs, too. I merely offered Suzumiya an opportunity for a little entertainment, or else, who knows what she might come up with to deal with her boredom, in which case, preparing a stage beforehand allows us to prepare a number of safety measures. Us, huh? Upon seeing my discouraged look, Koizumi attempted to smooth things over. The agency has nothing to do with this affair, though I filed a report just to be safe. I may be an esper, but at my core I am a high school student. What's wrong with going on a trip? What you would expect in the life of a high school student? A trip with some close friends would be an exciting occasion, correct? Only if the reason Haruhi is excited is because she's going on a trip. Maybe we were going to a normal hot spring or a beach on the mainland, but our destination is a remote island, you know. We're talking about Haruhi here. She might call in a couple hurricanes. Well, I'm pretty sure that she isn't crazy enough to cause a murder, or else we'd have a pile of dead bodies in North High by now. Anyway, I had a feeling there was something else important as I lost myself deep in thought. A 4-day, 3-night trip to a beach in the summer, with beaches of white sand and a dazzling sun over our heads. In that case, I'm willing to put up with this wretched heat a little longer. Slave away, Mr. Sen. Okay, I need to start preparing to drool over the sight of Asahina in a swimsuit. In a generous gesture, the lodging would be provided free of charge. No expenses for food either. All we had to pay was the price of the ferry trip in both directions. And so we were now boarding platform in the harbor, eagerly awaiting the boarding time for the ferry. Haruhi must have been in a big rush to go on a trip. The first semester ended yesterday, which meant today was the first day of summer vacation. Koizumi and his people told us that we could go whenever we wanted. The fact that Haruhi wanted to leave the second vacation started says a lot about her impatient personality. I'd say. I'd been planning on spending a few days without having to see Haruhi's face, but the person known as Haruhi Suzumiya wouldn't allow that to happen. You could call that the purpose of her existence. I haven't been on a ferry in a long time. With a visor on her head at a slanted angle, Haruhi stood at the edge of the wharf and gazed at the lead-colored sea. The sticky sea breeze sent her black hair fluttering as we lined up at the front of the boarding dock. This is such a big boat, I wonder how it manages to stay afloat. Asahina held the bag with both arms as she admired the body of the boat. She looked lovely in a white summer dress with a straw hat over her head. The laces of the hat were even tied under her chin in a manner you would expect from Asahina. Her childlike eyes were shining as she gazed at the old ferry as though it were an ancient artifact that had been dug out of some ruins. Maybe the boats don't float on water in her time. Nagato stood behind her in a daze as she stared at the name of the corporation written on the side of the boat. Oddly enough, Nagato wasn't wearing her school uniform. She was wearing a checkered sleeveless affair and holding a yellow-green umbrella which provided some shade. She had the aura of a sickly girl who'd just been released from the hospital. I wanted to go buy an instant camera and take a picture. I could probably sell it to Taniguchi or something for a good price. It appears we've been blessed with great weather. You could say that the conditions are perfect for sailing. Though we'll be in the second-class cabin, said Koizumi. That's fair enough. We were in a large room without anything that could be considered a partition. The voyage would take a number of hours, but we'd have to live another 10 years or so before we could deserve private cabins. After all, we're just a bunch of high schoolers going on a trip. The real problem here would be that this couldn't be considered a club trip. You couldn't call a trip for the sake of going on a trip a meaningful activity. Besides, aren't normal club trips supposed to have an advisor supervising? The SOS Brigade doesn't even have one. We're a club that hasn't been approved by the school, so I'd be surprised if we did have one. At North High, you can't be considered a student association if you don't have an advisor, and I have a hunch that even if we've managed to find a teacher willing to be the SOS Brigade's advisor, Haruhi would deem it unnecessary. If she actually thought that we needed one, we would have kidnapped someone by now, the way she did to us. I yawned as Asahina walked over to me. Her wide eyes were even wider than usual. How does such a big boat stay afloat? How? What reason could there be besides buoyancy? Do they not have science classes in Asahina's time? Ah, I see. Buoyancy. That's right, I get it. This would be what they mean by being unable to see the forest for the trees. I have no idea why she was so excited, but Asahina was nodding to herself with a look on her face like she was about to run out of the bath screaming Eureka. I decided to try asking a question. It couldn't hurt to ask just a question. Say, Asahina, do boats in the future use some kind of groundbreaking method to float? You think I'm allowed to tell you? She responded with a question. I shook my head. I seriously doubt it. I switched to a different line of questioning. Are there oceans in the future? Asahina tugged slightly at the brim of her hat. Yes, there are. There are oceans. That's good to hear. I don't know if she's from the near future or the distant future, but I'm glad that Earth hasn't turned into a complete desert, though I hope that the composition of seawater has improved by then. And right when I was getting enthusiastic about prying some beneficial information out of the time traveler, Kyon, Mikuru, what are you doing? It's time! Haruhi yelled to us to let us know it was time to board the ship. By the way, I had showed up after the meeting time today. When I left the house this morning, I picked up my duffel bag to find it oddly heavy. Suspicious. I opened it up to find that my clothes and toiletries had been replaced by my little sister. Last night, I'd accidentally let it slip that I'd be going on a trip with Haruhi and the others, which led to my sister screaming that she wanted to go too. It'd taken 2 whole hours to get her calmed down, but I guess she'd come up with a plan to smuggle herself along. I dumped my sister out of the bag and asked her where she'd hidden my stuff. When she took the fifth, I wasted a good deal of time trying to coax and force the information out of her. I'm not going to buy you any souvenirs, since that money's being used to buy the SOS Brigade box lunches on the ferry. The members of the SOS Brigade were gathered in a corner of the second-class drawing room as we chatted while eating the box lunches I'd been forced to buy, though Haruhi and Koizumi did most of the talking. How much longer until we get there? The trip by ferry takes approximately 6 hours. I've arranged for an acquaintance to be waiting at the port of arrival. From there, we'll be taking a private cruiser for approximately 30 minutes. The remote island and a towering manor wait for us at the voyage's end. I've never been there before, so I can't tell you how the location is. I'm sure it's a strange-looking building. Do you know the name of the person who designed it? Haruhi asked as she practically jumped up and down with excitement. I didn't inquire about that. I believe a somewhat famous architect was commissioned for the job. I can't wait to see it. I hope it meets your expectations, but I didn't see the place beforehand, so I wouldn't know. However, it was built by a person who wanted to erect a private villa on a deserted island, so I would assume that it's special in some way. At least, I hope so. Koizumi might hope so, but I sure don't. Let us picture a design that would satisfy Haruhi's expectations. It would probably look like something designed by an inebriated Gaudi who had just pulled 3 straight all-nighters. I'm sure I don't want to stay in such a freaky-looking mansion. I'd prefer to stay in an ordinary inn, a traditional Japanese-style one that serves roasted seaweed and raw eggs for breakfast. And if it was a special house, could Haruhi kill someone to make a case happen? Island? Manor? You couldn't find a better location for the SOS Brigade summer camp. This is a perfect way to start off our summer vacation. As Haruhi celebrated, the rest of the brigade members stood around her in silence. As there was nothing to do besides be rocked by the waves, we went with Koizumi's idea of playing Old Maid. Koizumi, the loser, was forced to buy juice for the rest of us, which we drank in silence. I couldn't help feeling uneasy about our destination being a remote island with a manor and all the other obscure details. It appeared that Asahina shared the sentiment. Haruhi finished her juice in 2 gulps. Mikuru, you look pale. Are you seasick? No, that may be it, Asahina responded before Haruhi spoke again. That's no good. You should go outside. You'll feel much better once you're out on deck and breathing in the sea air. Come on, let's go. And with that, she took Asahina's hand and grinned. There's no need to worry. I won't push you into the ocean. That doesn't sound bad. The sudden disappearance of a female passenger on a boat? Eek. Asahina froze and Haruhi slapped her shoulder. I'm joking. Just kidding. That wouldn't be any fun at all. This boat has to be run into by an iceberg or attacked by a monster squid before I could classify it as a serious incident. I'll check where the lifeboats are located later. I doubt any icebergs are floating around the coastal waters of Japan in the middle of summer, but I could see some unknown water-dwelling creature popping out of nowhere. I shot a look in an attempt to tell them to take out the monster if it showed up, but Koizumi merely smiled at me, and Nagato continued staring at the wall. Haruhi was still talking by herself. Incidents are supposed to happen on remote islands. Koizumi, I won't be disappointed, right? There are no significant events scheduled, Koizumi responded mildly. I also wish for this to be a pleasant trip. Koizumi smiled, the ambiguous smile typical of people saying insincere things, though I suppose with the usual expression on his face. I stared at the stupid Esper in an attempt to break through that smiling mask, but I soon gave up. His smile, just like Nagato's poker face, reveals no information. Seriously, can't you people just show some human emotion? Just not as much as Haruhi, please. Haruhi hummed a random tune as she led Asahina outside the cabin. Asahina kept looking back at me like she was hoping I'd come along, but that could have just been a wrong assumption on my part, and I didn't want to ruin Haruhi's mood by tagging along, so I didn't. I'm pretty sure that Haruhi would still save Asahina from falling into the ocean. I looked up at the ceiling and prayed that was true before lying down sideways with my bag as a pillow. I'd woken up early this morning, so I figured I'd get some sleep for now. I had a feeling that my dream involved something of a fantasy nature, but before I could remember any details, I was slapped awake and receiving a directive transmission from Haruhi. What are you sleeping for, stupid? Get up already. Do you even intend to be serious about this trip? How much use will you be if you're out like this on the boat ride there? It appeared that we had arrived on the stopover island while I was asleep, and I felt as though I had lost something irreplaceable. The first step is key. You don't have the mentality to enjoy things. Look at how those eyes are shining with excitement about this trip. Haruhi was pointing at the 3 servants disembarking from the ship with their belongings. One of them was a smiling boy. Now, Suzumiya, I'm sure he's saving his energy for the rest of the trip. He probably intends to stay awake the whole night to come up with ways to entertain us. As I listened to Koizumi's unmuted follow-up, I searched Nagato's automaton-like face for these so-called shining eyes, and I also glanced at Asahina's eyes, which resembled those of a small animal. We're already there? I muttered. A multi-hour trip, with the members of the SOS Brigade. No, I could care less about the other people. I had given in to my desire to sleep and killed an opportunity to spend quality time with Asahina inside the cabin. Whoa, I already jinxed myself. Should I really be spending my summer vacation like this? The only memory I'd have of this day so far would be playing Old Maid. What happened to the 2 of us chatting while standing outside in the cool breeze? I felt like grabbing the me who'd fallen asleep a few hours ago and kicking him a few times. Click. I was blinded by a sudden flash. I turned toward the source of the sound to find Asahina holding a camera. The child-faced angel had a lovely smile. Hee hee, I took a picture of you waking up. She also looked like a preschooler who just pulled off a prank. I also took a picture of you while you were sleeping. Did you sleep well? I instantly cheered up. I wonder why Asahina was secretly taking pictures of me. Could it be that she actually wanted a picture of me? One to slip into a cute frame and place by her bed for her to say goodnight to every evening? That sounds nice. Let's go with that. Man, if you told me you wanted a picture, I'd have been more than happy to give you as many as you wanted. I'll even show you my albums once I figure out where they're tucked away. However, I was about to voice that sentiment when Asahina handed the instant camera to Haruhi. Kyon, what are you grinning about? It makes you look like an idiot, so you'd better stop. As she put the camera in her bag, Haruhi had a look on her face like she was planning on selling exclusive photos of an accident scene to some newspaper. Mikuru is serving as a temporary SOS brigade photographer for this trip. We aren't taking pictures for fun. These will serve as important materials for leaving a record of our club activities for prosperity. But we can't allow this girl to take pictures of whatever she wants, so I'll be instructing her. How are pictures of me sleeping and waking up considered important materials? The pictures of you sleeping with a stupid face completely free of any concern about this trip will serve as a warning to future generations, understood? An underling snoring away when the chief is awake goes against morals, natural order, and brigade code. I couldn't tell if Haruhi was angry or laughing as she glared at me. It appeared that it would be futile to ask when a brigade code had just been made up. There probably wasn't anything in writing, so I'll just let it slide like an Egyptian. Got it. So if I don't want my face drawn on, I can't go to sleep before you do? But in that case, if I wake up before you, should I be allowed to draw a mustache on your face? What's that? You want to do something that childish? Just so you know, my senses are sharp that I even hit back in my sleep. And a brigade member committing such offenses against the brigade chief would lead to heads rolling. You know, Haruhi, the majority of modern countries don't behead people anymore. What do you have to say about that? Why do I have to comment on penal practices of other countries? The trouble isn't going to happen in a foreign country. We'll just find it on the mysterious island we're heading for. As I adjusted my bag, I prayed that her find wasn't going to turn into a make. The boat rocked back and forth. It appeared that we were preparing to dock at the wharf. The other passengers were headed toward the vicinity of the exit. A mysterious island, huh? Are we headed for Panorama Island or something? I just hope the island won't suddenly rise out of the water and start moving. It'll be fine, Koizumi nodded, appearing to have read my mind. It's simply a small, removed island with nothing unusual about it. You won't find any monsters or crazy scientists there, you have my word. This guy's word isn't very dependable. I silently looked at Nagato's pale face. Nagato silently looked back. I guess you could say she could slay monsters if it comes to that. I'm counting on you, E.T. The boat rocked again. Eek! Asahina lost her balance, but Nagato was there to silently hold her up. We disembarked from the ferry to find a butler and a maid waiting for us. Hello, Arakawa. It's been some time. Koizumi cheerfully waved one hand. And you, Mori. Thank you for coming to meet us. Sorry to trouble you. Koizumi then turned back to us, standing dumbfounded, and spread his arms in an exaggerated motion like a stage actor focused on making sure the people in the nosebleed section couldn't see what he's doing. His usual smile was 4 times wider than usual. Allow me to introduce you. These are the 2 people who manage the manor we'll be staying in, Arakawa and Mori. Their respective positions are butler and maid. I suppose you can see that. No kidding. I took another look at the 2 peculiarities who remained bowed. You can't help staring at them. We have been awaiting your arrival. I am the butler, Arakawa. An old tuxedo-clad gentleman with white hair, eyebrows, and a mustache greeted us and bowed again. My name is Sonomori. I serve as the maid. It is a pleasure to meet you. The woman next to him lowered her head at the same angle. Then they both straightened together with timing so exact, you had to wonder how many times they practiced this. Arakawa appeared to be fairly old, but it was hard to judge what his actual age was. It was also difficult to gauge the age of the maid Sonomori. She appeared to be young enough to be our age, but that could have been a product of makeup, or she simply had a baby face. A butler and a maid? Haruhi murmured in surprise. I felt the exact same way. I had no idea that such professions actually existed in Japan. I figured the concept had become a relic of the past. I see. The 2 people standing behind Koizumi definitely look like a butler and a maid. At the very least, if they introduced themselves as such, you'd have no choice but to nod and agree. Especially the maid, Mori, I believe. She looked like a maid in every possible way, because she was wearing a maid outfit. I spent every day looking at Asahina wearing her maid outfit in the literary club room, so I know what I'm talking about. The outfits worn by Arakawa and Mori hadn't come from Haruhi's need for pointless costume play. This was a necessary dress for their actual professions. In a daze, Asahina gazed at the 2 of them, Mori, to be specific, with a surprised look on her face. Though I suppose it was about half surprise and 30% confusion. Who knows what the remaining 20% would be considered? There may have been some envy mixed in. Perhaps she'd actually developed a desire to become a real maid after Haruhi kept forcing it on her. As for Nagato, she hadn't made a single comment and her face hadn't even twitched. She stared at the two professionals, who made up our reception with eyes like obsidian barbs from the old Stone Age. "Now then, everyone," Arakawa called to us in a rich tenor like that of an opera singer. "I have prepared a boat over there. It will be a half-hour voyage by boat to reach my master's island. I hope you can forgive the inconvenience of being located on a remote island." He and Mori bowed again. I was feeling pretty uncomfortable. I wanted to tell them we didn't warrant such courteous treatment. Or is Koizumi the son of some rich family? I figured that his specialty was being an irregular esper, but maybe his family was rich enough for him to be called young master at home. "It's totally not a problem," Haruhi shouted in a voice that instantly scattered all the question marks in my mind. I turned to find that Haruhi had a smile on her face like a bogus movie producer who had just squeezed a large sum of money out from a stupid sponsor. "That's what makes it a remote island. Half an hour is nothing. You can take as many hours as you want. After all, I'm looking for a remote island in the middle of the ocean. Kyo and Mikuru, you should be pretty happy about this. We have a remote island with a manor. And there's even a suspicious-looking butler and maid. You could search all of Japan and only find 2 islands like this. There isn't a second one." "Oh, wow, so amazing. I can't wait." Moving past Asahina's failed attempt to sound excited, Haruhi is taking Ru to a new level, which is calling people suspicious-looking to their face. Well, this whole situation is pretty shady, and quite frankly, the SOS Brigade isn't any less suspicious, so we aren't really in a position to talk about others, and I don't see why events had to play out in a way that left Haruhi on a perpetual high. So I watched Koizumi chat with Arakawa, the butler, and Mori, the maid, standing by with her hands clasped. I had an urge to look out into the sea. Calm waves and clear sky. No sign of an impending hurricane so far. Will we ever step foot on the mainland again? Nagato's cool poker face looked very reassuring. Pathetic, huh? Arakawa and Mori led us to a small wharf near the ferry dock. I was expecting a pop-up boat, but instead a private cruiser out of the picture of the Mediterranean was rocking in the waves. It looked so fancy I didn't even want to ask how much it cost, though I could totally picture catching a swordfish while riding this thing. I was too careless. While ignoring Haruhi, who just jumped on board herself, Koizumi helped the timid Asahina and indifferent Nagato onto the ship. That should have been my job, but groaning about it failed to turn the clock back. We were led into the cabin, and before I could even start wondering why such a fancy Western-style reception room was inside the boat, the cruiser gently set off. So it appears that the butlers have boat permits these days, since Arakawa was the one at the helm. Incidentally, Sonomori was sitting across from me with a gentle smile, like she was a fixture on this ship. Her maid attire was chic and fundamentally sound. I had a feeling that it wasn't as stimulating as the outfit Haruhi made Asahina wear in the clubroom, and since I wasn't particularly well versed in the world of maid outfits, I wasn't really sure. I wasn't the only person feeling uneasy, as Asahina had been glancing over at the maid's garb. Maybe she wants to ask about the experiences of a real maid on the job, as a reference for how to behave in the clubroom. She tends to be serious about the oddest things. Nagato was sitting rigidly in a forward position while Koizumi remained composed with the usual smile on his face. "This is a nice boat. Perhaps we should add fishing to the schedule," he proposed to no one in particular. As for Haruhi, "So what do you call that building?" "What do you mean? Does it have a name along the lines of House of Black Death, Crooked Mansion, Lilac Villa, or Koketsu Castle?" "No, not particularly." "Are there any terrifying stories about strange hidden mechanisms, or an architect dying an unnatural death, or a room where any person who spends a night will die?" "None that I'm aware of." "In that case, does the master of the manor wear a mask, or hear the voices of his 3 sisters inside his head, and then there were none?" "Not at all." Butler chimed in. "Nothing like that at the moment." "Then there's a pretty high chance something will happen in the future, right?" "That may be the case." This butler is just telling her what she wants to hear. As soon as the boat had set off, Haruhi had climbed up to the cockpit of the boat and engaged in the above conversation with Arakawa. From what I could hear of their conversation over the sound of the engine and splashing waves, it seemed that Haruhi was expecting way too much from this man on a remote island. In any case, why does she insist that the island have a bizarre nature simply because it's removed from land? Can't she be satisfied by taking a swim, eating good food, lying around and strengthening our friendship before going home happily? I sincerely hope she can, though it may already be too late. The appearance of a butler and maid had been more unexpected than a blue shark showing up in a swimming pool, so at this point I wouldn't really have been surprised if the master of the manor wore a mask, or there were other guests who behaved in a suspicious manner. Damn, Koizumi, what other tricks do you have up your sleeve? Whoa, I can see it. Is that the villa? That would be the manor. Haruhi's conspicuously loud and lovely voice boomed through the air, stabbing my heart like thunder.